Welcome back to the Hockey Happy Hour. That was an awesome performance by Stone Temple Pilots with Chester Bennington of Lincoln Park. Not a big fan, but still, point is, I love the Stone Temple Pilots. Not a fan of Lincoln Park.
Yeah. Well, Chester Bennington sang that song better than Scott Whelan, if I could dare say so.
That's because I think Scott Whelan was a little bit out of his mind when he would do the songs.
No doubt, no doubt.
But anyway, we move on, and it's now time for our next award on the list. And, this is for the men behind the bench, the brains behind the team. You always wonder who's the leader in the locker room. Sometimes it's the captain, sometimes it's your star player, sometimes it's the coach. The coaches are so important, and they're invaluable. Why? Because they're the ones that are getting this team functioning. They're the ones who run the system. They're the ones that make you believe. They're the ones that say when the chips are down and it looks like you're going to lose. If you're down 3-0 going late into the third and he calls timeout, he's the guy who's at that bench saying, guess what, boys? We're going to win it. You want to know why? Because I know you guys. I know what this team can do. We can come back down 3-0 in 5 minutes. I know we can. That's the kind of leader that the coach is. He makes you believe when there is no belief left, or it seems like there's no hope left. He'll make you believe. These are the best this year at doing so. We're going to start with Rob's nominees.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. First on my list is an old friend. That's Ken Hitchcock.
Hitchcock.
Of the St. Louis Blues. We remember, from his days in Philadelphia, always the disciplinarian. Sometimes even to the utmost. Sometimes it doesn't care win or loss, you're getting disciplined. Well, Hitch changed his style this year. I don't know, maybe it's getting older a little bit, and he wanted to be a little more relaxed. I think it was more the right move for the players that the Blues have and what they needed from their coach. So he had a more relaxed style of coaching this year, and it paid dividends as the Blues are competing for the President's Trophy this year with a 52-21-7 record, 111 points, which is currently, I believe, 4 points behind the Boston Bruins and tied now with the Avalanche and 1 point behind the Ducks. So they're still right in it with 2 games left to go. It'll be a crapshoot. But either way, from where this Blues team was, which, has been a good team, Hitchcock has been, with this squad for a while. This particular year, he really, like I said, he made those changes in his style, and it paid dividends. So I really think he's a perfect nominee for Best Coach of the Year.
Yeah, I definitely think he deserves it. And this is a guy who, quite frankly, he took over a Blues organization that had also been living in stagnation. This is another team that was missing the playoffs routinely.
Right.
And they were there, but it just seemed like if you had to think who was the better team, half the time the Blues weren't, and the Blues had made the playoffs off and on in the 21st century. They haven't been consistent. This is really the first time they've really been consistent during this period of time. So definitely Ken Hitchcock deserves a big nod for what he was able to do for this team.
Yeah, specifically this year, in comparison to past years. Great point, brother. Great point.
Now,
number two, number two nominee,
yeah.
And this is his first year as a head coach. And boy, what was it? Roy, what was it a year?
Yeah, it was memorable, all right. And doo-doo.
Yep. And I'm speaking, of course, of Patrick Waugh of the Colorado Avalanche. Waugh has surprised many by leading the Avs to a 51-21-7 record, now tied with the Blues ahead in the tiebreaker ahead of that division. His winning persona has just continued from the goal crease to behind the bench. The Avs were 9 games under 500 despite mad talent last season in that shortened stint. And now, look at them, 30 games over 500, just full steam ahead into this playoffs. I don't think you could have asked for anything more from a first-year head coach.
What better if he actually wins the division? How do you think that would be? First year as coach wins the division. This is a team that was dead last year, and they won the division.
May I make a bold prediction?
Yes.
He will not only be the best coach on our show, but in the NHL. He will be Coach of the Year.
Bold prediction, my friend.
Yeah.
Very bold prediction.
Yeah,
I could believe the NHL one. Yes.
Yeah.
But we shall now move on to my nominees.
Great.
First one on the list. Basically, the Dallas Stars, who have been desperately clinging to a playoff spot, they usually at this point were irrelevant and were dead in the water. But somebody came to town that whipped them into shape. None other than Buffalo Sabres former head coach Lindy Ruff. Lindy Ruff single-handedly made this team a dominant force to be reckoned with. Because the Stars were trying to build something. They looked like they were lost in transition. They had good players. I mean, they had something, but they just wandered around aimlessly through the Western Conference, just like, oh, yeah, we're here still, former Stanley Cup champions, and we don't know what we're doing. But when Lindy Ruff came to town, boy, did things change real fast. Yeah. Now this team has been a tight, very well-oiled machine. They are very, very difficult to beat. They're a very tough team to face, and they've got good goaltending to add to it. So it's just like, what more could you want? Lindy Ruff can start where he left off. When he left Buffalo, he could start right where he left off with this team.
Yeah, well, you see how much he didn't lose from his years in Buffalo now that he's got actual skilled players playing for him. I know I've been tough on Buffalo this year, but
no, you know what? It's okay. It's well deserved. We can put them as biggest disappointment, but we kind of all expected Buffalo not to be anything.
It wasn't a surprise.
Yeah,
to
it
me.
wasn't a surprise to me. Yeah,
but I mean, just players like Jamie Benn, Tyler Seguin, great goaltending that they've been getting all year from Lettinen and now Tim Thomas. Lindy Ruff. It just goes to show where his skills lie. And I'm not about to say that the Stars are a complete team, so a lot of credit still is even more due to him as well.
That's a good point. I mean, I still think that a lot of the star caliber players, though, the system that they have, it's solid. And Lindy Ruff's system has always been. I mean, in all honesty, when Buffalo had their talented players, Buffalo was a good team. They were a nightmare to face. And we know from plenty of experience, the Flyers had to face off with the Sabres God knows how many times during the era of Lindy Ruff. And every time the Sabres would face the Flyers, there was a 50-50 chance that the Sabres could actually beat the Flyers.
Right.
And in all honesty, shockingly enough, the Flyers were able to beat them more of the times. But the Sabres had just as much of a shot to getting rid of us as we did them. Right. So definitely a guy that you can't overlook in his impact in Dallas. Not at all. And now my second nominee. My second nominee is a guy who has been in his seat for quite some time, deservingly so, and he's kept this team alive, breathing, and well, and kicking up and doing a good stuff. None other than San Jose Sharks head coach Tom McClellan. And I was caught between whether I was going to pick the Anaheim Ducks head coach or I was going to pick Tom McClellan. But if I had to think about it, I actually would give McClellan this for the simple fact of Anaheim has so many star players. Don't get me wrong, San Jose has their fair share, but San Jose, to me, feels more organized. They always seemed more organized to me. And Todd McClellan's system has usually been so damn solid.
Right.
It's hard to bust that system.
Well, look at their consistency all year.
Yeah.
They haven't really dipped too low or too high, whereas Anaheim has. They were really
yeah.
high up and then slacked off and back and forth.
Yeah.
I think that stems from the head coach. So I think that was a good decision picking McClellan over the Ducks, Boudreau. Yeah.
And look at Bruce Boudreau's history in the playoff record. His teams have really gutted out some series where they've been lucky to win, where they should have dominated, and then other times they've been in series where they lose, where they should have won.
Right.
Meanwhile, on Tom McClellan's team, if San Jose was meant to beat that team, they usually beat that team. I mean, there have been occasions where they've choked in the first round, but very rarely. They would get through the first round and then choke in the semifinals or the Western Conference Finals.
No doubt.
But nonetheless, you get the point. The point is that Tom McClellan has been solid for the San Jose Sharks coach, and he continues to be to this day. And I'm pretty sure he'll probably have a pretty long tenure as San Jose's coach. I think he'll be there for quite some time.
Oh, absolutely.
And now it's time to pick who is the better. Now, let's start with mine. Out of the two of mine, I'm going to let Todd McClellan slip by Lindy Ruff because I think that Dallas has not really secured their playoff hopes and dreams yet. They've had a great season compared to others, but they still have yet to really find themselves 1,000% secure.
Right.
San Jose has had a phenomenal year. They're at 111 points, I think, and they're just solid in the Pacific right now. And forget about it. It's the San Jose Sharks. They're just always a solid team, and Todd McClellan's system is just perfect. Picture perfect.
Absolutely.
So, now, your turn.
Out of my two, oof, man, this is tough. Both are really deserving, both Hitch and Waugh. And to eliminate one over the other, I'm gonna leave it up to the hockey gods.
All right, then. Mine as well.
All right, heads for Hitch, tails for Wah.
Gotcha.
Patrick Wah.
Patrick Wah, the stuff, man. The hockey gods are shining upon him. I think the division will go to Colorado this year. Now, come to think about it,
they're streaking right at the right time. But I mean, it's just really impressive what he's done with the team. I was leaning towards Wah, even though Hitch has had a great season with the Blues. But Wah, just in terms of best coach of the year, where he's taken the team from and where they're at now, and they're at their pinnacle, heading right into the playoffs. Yeah, I'm good with that, hockey gods.
Yeah, the hockey gods praying. I think Patrick Wah must be like St. Peter or St. George in the hockey god temple because he just keeps on winning. Patrick Wah has had such a sparkling career. How many cups? He's got like 5 cup rings, is it? Or 4? 4, yeah. He's got 4. He might get 5 as a coach before you know it.
I think it was 3 with the Canadians, 1 with the Avs.
No, it was
2 and 2.
It was 2 and 2.
2 and 2.
Yeah, because he won one in the mid '80s with Montreal. Then he won one in '93. Because that was the year with Johnny LeClair and that overtime winning team that beat Wayne Gretzky and his LA Kings, and then the 2 years with Colorado. So, yeah, definitely good stuff from Patrick Wah. I mean, you just can't take it away.
He's a winner wherever he goes.
Yeah, he's a winner. Really that's not counting how many Eastern Conference titles he's been in or how many Western Conference titles that he has competed for. There's a lot of that going around. He's been in plenty of them. So, we now have our final 2 coaches, Todd McClellan of the San Jose Sharks and Patrick Wah. This isn't really a contest, in all honesty.
Yeah.
If I had to really choose, I'm going to go with Patrick Wah. And the reason why is not to take anything away from Todd McClellan, but Todd McClellan has been so consistent with his team. His team should have been in the Stanley Cup Finals by now, and they haven't been. I hate putting that out, but it's the honest truth. By now, the Sharks should have faced somebody at this point in the Stanley Cup Finals. By all accounts, in 2010, the Flyers should have faced the San Jose Sharks because they were the better team on paper compared to the Chicago Blackhawks.
Right.
In all honesty, it's only the fair truth of the Western Conference Final that year. And so it's kind of like, when's that going to happen, bud? The Sharks should have been in the finals by now. Now we move on. And I think Wah has so much left to prove, but I think the future's sparkling so bright, it's hard not to give him this award.
Sure, best coach of this year.
It's very hard not to give him this award. I mean, they're both dead even in points, but Colorado coming back from where they were, you got to give it to him. He took them from nothing to here. Yeah. It's impressive.
Well, this is tight. I mean, Hitch could get this. Wah could get this. McClellan could get this as
Ruff
well.
could get it.
Ruff,
any one of them. All 4 of them are quality coaches. Mm-hmm. All 4 of them, I would have them coach for the Flyers any day of the week. I mean, it's the honest truth.
Right. But
sorry, Berube.
Well, speaking of Berube, too, I mean, I would have put him on this list as well, but I didn't want to be too much of a homer. What he's done with a team that was really not even coming close to the playoffs, having a just shy of 600 winning percentage, really changing the dynamic of the Flyers team into a much more hardworking element where he's going to give it to you straight. It's either like, hey, good job, buddy, or you suck, you need to work harder. That's great in terms of skill at the head coach. I don't think he has that to measure up to these 4 men yet.
Yeah, I think in all honesty, we still have to wait and see what happens next year and the year after that for Craig Berube, because I think as great as this season was for the Flyers, we didn't know what was going to happen at the beginning of the year. This season could have been the most atrocious season that the Flyers have had, even worse than 2007. It could have been It could have been as bad. It could have been worse than that.
I still have nightmares.
Oh yeah, that's still a nightmarish campaign. Anyway, but point is, though, Craig Berube definitely gets a little bit of a shout-out for what he was able to do with the Philadelphia Flyers this year and whip them into shape.
Great honorable mention.
Yeah. So we now give our award to Patrick Wah of the Colorado Avalanche, and I think your prediction might just very well come true on him getting the GM of the year. I could see him getting the Jack Adams, in all honesty. I really could.
Yeah.
And he is definitely Hockey Happy Hour's Coach of the Year. And now it is time for our next award. And our next award is going to be Best Goalie.
Best goalie. Nice.
Now, this is another tough one. Now, goaltending comes down to the simple fact of this is your last line of defense. He's the guy who makes or breaks your team in a lot of ways, especially in playoff time. Because if he's not on high gear, your team's in trouble real fast.
No doubt. His last line of defense.
Last line of defense. And you know what? If he ain't on high speed and he ain't on all cylinders, you better be able to score 30 goals a night. It's as simple as that. We now look towards our nominees. I'll get mine off first.
Cool.
My first one, Semyon Varlamov. He definitely deserves it. He's a league leader as a goaltender. And I don't think it's definitely not undeserving. He deserves it. He's worked hard, especially after the beginning of the year where he was getting assault charges thrown at him by his ex now. But putting his personal problems aside, look at the player himself. Look at what he's able to do. Look at his body of work this year.
Right.
Impressive stuff under Patrick Waugh. I'm pretty sure his tutelage has definitely contributed to him. Now, putting that aside also, it's one thing to hear it. It's another thing to apply it. Because anybody can teach you anything. But it depends on how you apply it. Do you apply it well? Do you follow direction well? Can you follow direction well? If you can't, it doesn't matter who's teaching you. Yeah. It could be anybody. Sean Beliveau could teach you how to play goal, and you wouldn't know what you're doing.
Right.
Ken Dryden could teach you. If you don't know how to follow direction, forget it. You're just not going to get it.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. So there you go.
Yeah.
Point is, Semyon Varlamov not only was able to take the advice from Patrick Waugh, he's been able to put it to use, and this has been a great year for him.
Yeah. Oh, believe you me, I was checking him out big time, compiling my nominees list. 40-win goaltender. How could you not have him on the list? So I'm so grateful that you did. And here's the most impressive thing, I think, in my behalf, is that he took a real big blow in the Olympics, not getting the starting nod for Team Russia in Sochi, in Russia.
That might have served them better.
Yeah, it may have served them better, but absolutely right. Absolutely right. It did serve them better in terms of, wear and tear, saving it for the NHL. Great point. I didn't even consider that. I was thinking a bit more on the psychological side where he could have let that be a big negative to affect his season, and he took lemons and made lemonade. He threw those lemons against the wall. So, yeah, thank you for putting him on this list. Awesome.
And of course, who would take that away from him? From what he's done this year, he's been very impressive. My next nominee is a former Philadelphia Flyer who is now wearing a Columbus Blue Jackets jersey, Sergei Bobrovsky.
Bob.
Without a doubt, if Bob was not on the Columbus Blue Jackets, we would not be talking about Columbus possibly being in the playoffs.
No chance.
Bob has been the one big, important little slab of glue that has kept that Columbus team from flying apart. It's a good team. It's a young and hungry team. But let's be honest. If it doesn't have goaltending, it's not worth the time nor the effort. You need the goaltending to make that young team, because that's a young team that's going to get ruffled a little bit every now and again. It's going to be a team that's got to face teams like Pittsburgh, Boston, Detroit. These are teams that are veteran-laden that can get inside the head of those young guys. Bobrovsky has been the glue that has kept that team together. No doubt about it, in my opinion. I think he probably would deserve another Vezina, in my honest opinion. So there you go. Sergei Bobrovsky is my final nominee. So those are my two. Now let's go to the Pove, man. What's your two?
I'm a little upset right now. Why did we let Bob go? Man, we could be having this guy right now.
At this point, it's the only way we can. We got to look at it from a therapist point of view. You know what? Guess what? It's not our fault. It's Paul Holmgren's stupid-ass fault.
Well, we don't make out too bad, and this isn't one of my nominees, but Steve Mason, he would have maybe still been on the Blue Jackets, resurrecting his career at this point. Who knows? It's probably better off for both players. Who's to say that Bob wouldn't have floundered in Philly and Mason would have floundered in where he's at? Trading places can be a good thing.
Who knows? Maybe trading places was a better idea. Who knows? Maybe Mason would have been what the Blue Jackets needed, too. Who knows? Both sides, it could have been right. Yeah. You just never know, man.
Bob's so talented.
Yeah, it's a shame that he's gone. It really is. Maybe we'll get him back later on in his career.
Flyers have been known to do that.
Yeah, maybe we'll get him back. We got Hextall back when we traded him.
Sure thing.
Although Hextall would give up soft goals. But anyway, back to that.
Bernie Perron as well.
Hey, we got Bernie back too, yeah. And we had him when he was a rookie, and we got him back a lot later, and he was Bernie.
Yep.
So,
Yep. All right. Well, my nominees maybe are a little on the obvious side, but still need to be there in the discussion. Number one, Tuukka Rask.
Tuukka Rask, absolutely. He has to be there.
He's manned Boston's net all season with proficiency, and Boston has the best, as I said before, plus 83 goal differential and second goals against with 171. His personal stats, 35, 15, and 6. Dazzling 2.06 goals against average, a 9.29 save percentage, and 7 shutouts, which lead the league.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Man, just think about what he just said, folks. All of that from one man.
From one man. Absolutely. 1,616 saves, and he'd given up 114 of those 171 goals against Bruins. So there was a lot by the backup there. So, I mean, he certainly has had a great season. He's had great seasons in the past, but he was under that shadow of Tim Thomas, and now it's all his.
I mean, we all saw shades of what he was going to be in 2010.
Yeah.
When he faced the Flyers in that second round, and he helped eliminate Buffalo in the first round, you looked at him, you're like, he's going to be something. He is really going to be something in the future, because he was a pain in the ass to score on.
And now he's in his prime.
And he's well signed. He's like a 9-year deal, I think, with Boston or something like that. He's got like one of those lifetime deals with Boston. So they're in pretty good shape right now.
I'd say so. Okay. Awesome. And number 2 on my list, it's a little tragic at this point because he's recently injured and out for the regular season, but he's already put up enough numbers, I think, to be in this discussion, and that's Ben Bishop of the Tampa Bay Lightning.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, after taking over the goalie reins from young Anders Lindback back in October, he's definitely been the best goaltender in the NHL. Where would the Lightning be without him? Honestly,
it would be a little hard to say. I mean, because Tampa, like I said, have a great offense, but they've had a really less than desirable defense. That's been the one problem with them. They're very, there's no gray area. It's very black and white with them. That's another problem that, again, it compares them to the Flyers. Flyers have a great offense, but man, our defense sucks. Thank God for Steve Mason for us, and Emery too, because Emery's come big through us every once in a while. The same thing with them. Anders Lindback's come big through them every once in a while, and Ben Bishop's been their workhorse. Without them, who knows where Tampa would be right now.
Exactly. I mean, he gave them what they needed, just as Steve Mason has given us what our needed, that last line of defense, because there's nothing in between the O and the goalie a lot of times. But just looking at his numbers, really match up with all 3 other goaltenders that we've discussed here. 37, 14, and 7, a 2.23 goals against average, 924 save percentage, 5 shutouts, and 1,758 saves, and that has been in short time because he didn't start off as the starting goaltender, and now he's out now for the remainder of the year as well.
That's going to come back to haunt them probably.
But he should come back in the first round, though. That's what they're predicting, but who knows? It's a touch and go.
It's one of those things where it's always the same thing where they predict he should be back in the first round, just win in the first round, because it's just like 3 games go by, oh, he's back. Yeah, we're down 3-0 in the series. Can you build us back up for a miracle comeback? I'll try. That's a little hard to do.
Absolutely.
But we can't all be the Philly Flyers. Anyway, but definitely worthy of being on the nominees and definitely worthy of being in the running for this award, Ben Bishop is. And he started with Ottawa, and I think he had a few starts in Ottawa where he realized, wow, he could show up Anderson every once in a while, and you're doing something right when you could do that to Anderson in Ottawa.
Yeah,
so
another tremendous goaltender, yeah.
So now we've got our nominees, and out of my 2, Varlamov and Bobrovsky, I don't want to give Bob the shaft, but I'm going to have to because Varlamov has just had a better year, in my opinion. He's been solid for the Avalanche. Bob was injured for a period of time, so he wasn't there the whole time. Kyle McElhinney came in, and McElhinney did pretty good for the Columbus Blue Jackets for a little while, filling in. So, in my honest opinion, I gotta go with my gut instinct on that one. Varlamov's got to be the one who's got to get my shot out of the 2.
It's hard to argue against 40 wins. That's a great year.
And it's also hard to argue against his save percentage.
Maybe moving forward, who would you rather have going into the playoffs?
That's a tough one. I would probably prefer Bobrovsky for playoff experience. Yeah.
Not only that, but just also he's playing his absolute best right now.
Yeah, he
you
is.
know?
He's been phenomenal for this Columbus Blue Jackets team.
Yeah, but Varlamov is a
Damn
good
it, that could
contender.
have been us.
Yeah, I know, right?
All right, we move on.
And for the same circumstance, too, for the same exact reasons, I'm going with Tuukka Rask over Ben Bishop.
Numbers. The numbers really don't lie. I know I try not to base my picks on stats, but it's very hard in goaltending not to argue them because a lot of times the numbers do not lie with a goaltender. Sometimes a player, the numbers can lie with a forward or a defensive man because of the hard work ethic that they put out there on the ice. But when you've got goaltenders, the numbers don't lie because, the work ethic is there. And, a lot of times it's the players that make the goaltender sometimes look bad. It's not necessarily the goaltender.
Right.
So
Exactly. I mean, I was almost thinking about picking Bishop because no defense, rather than Rask has defenders in front of him, and that could maybe affect his numbers with that sparkling 2.06 goals against average. But Tuukka Rask is the man. He's the man.
It's hard to argue with him. I mean, I'm shocked actually. I think we picked almost all of all the goaltenders are in the East, with the exception of one.
Yeah.
That's interesting when you think about it, because usually good goaltending was in the West.
Right.
A lot of times that was where the good goaltending was.
Right.
So very, very interesting that we've come to this conclusion that 3 goaltenders are on Eastern Conference teams.
Well, all the scorers are out there in the West.
That's a good point. Yeah. But anyway, so we move forward, and now with our top 2, we've got on one end we've got Varlamov, on the other one we got Rask.
That's a crapshoot, man. I'm fine with either one winning this award, to be honest.
You want to do the hockey gods?
Hockey gods it is. All right, call it out. Who's who?
Tails for Rask.
Tuukka Rask.
Tuukka Rask. There we go. Ladies and gentlemen, Tuukka Rask is the winner of the Best Goaltender of the Year award. So congratulations to Tuukka. And we have now... We have 2 Bruins who have won awards now. We've got Chara and we got Rask, sensing a theme.
Yeah, it won't be the last award.
Yeah, so let's do a quick review of what we've got so far. We've got our best goaltender, which is Tuukka Rask. We've got our biggest disappointment, which is the Washington Capitals. We have our best defenseman, which goes to Zdeno Chara, and our best GM goes to Ray Shero.
And our best coach, Patrick Waugh. So we've got those so far. We now have a very interesting award to give out. This is going to be the fun one to give out, the Douchebag of the Year award. I loved when you mentioned this one. It's like it just made me crack up every time I say it for obvious reasons.
Yes, because quite frankly, in all sports, we're going to have the nice guys, the friendly guys, the hardworking guys, the so friendly guys that you could say hi to at the water cooler, and then you've got the douchebags, the guys you can't stand, but unfortunately you're stuck with in life. Let us move forward with our douchebag nominees, and I'll start it off with my first one of the year. My first one, beyond a shadow of a doubt, has to be the obvious one, Sidney Crosby. Every year he's got to be nominated for this because he is a douchebag, and you are a piece of shit, Sidney Crosby. So Crosby, my first nominee. Pove, who's your first nominee for the douchebag of the year?
All right, I'm going to stick with the players on the player side, and I'm going to go with Brad Marchand of the Boston Bruins.
Oh, that's an interesting pick.
Well, yeah, exactly. I figured I'd be a little unique here, but if you look at it, he's one of the dirtiest players in the league despite great hockey skills. There's no need for that. He is dirty, and that's a lot coming from a Flyers fan. Because,
that's a good point.
You could say the same thing about the Wayne train. You really could.
More Scotty.
Scotty Hartnell.
I think Hartnell's more of the dirty player on the Flyers.
Yeah, definitely. But, I mean, Marchand, he's just honestly, if he wasn't that dirty and a douchebag, he could honestly be in the talk of a best player, maybe MVP in the league. And he really shoots himself in the foot on the ice and off the ice. I mean, what's key here is his jackassery.
Jackassery.
Yeah,
I love it.
Off the ice is of legendary status. He likes to get drunk and then thrown out of bars and urinate in public. That's what he likes to do. That's how
I
he
like
rolls.
to do that. Does that make me an asshole?
Yeah, to tell you the truth, it's not so much the getting drunk part, but getting to the point where you're falling all over yourself, you're getting naked, streaking.
Okay. I do have shame. I wouldn't do that.
Well, you know what? Any of these things don't really sound that bad for you or I, but when you're a public figure, and you have a lot of kids, a lot of young Bruins fans looking up to you, that's not a way to conduct yourself off the ice. So both on and off the ice, what a douchebag.
Yeah, I you know what? I was wondering why, and now I understand. Now I get it. You are a role model to kids, and that's why I think Crosby belongs in this list too. Because you know what? Crosby's a whiner. He always dives. Every 5 seconds, he's crying to the referee. When Alex Ovechkin got a hat trick back in the day, back when they were having that playoff game, Crosby's over to the ref saying, "Hey, let's get the game started. You're not going to let the fans celebrate." They're in Washington.
Yeah.
Ovechkin just got his hat trick.
Yeah.
Let the fans have their moment here,
Right.
asshole.
Yeah.
Seriously.
I mean that, and look in the series against the Flyers where you got Voracek bending down for his glove and he pushes away into the skate.
Yep.
What type of sportsmanship is that showing for the young kids out there?
And then he started stuff with Timonen.
Yeah.
Timonen wasn't even attacking him for that. I mean, Timonen said something, and then he just grabs Timonen's jersey. What is wrong with you? First of all, if you want to start something, drop the gloves and be a man. Don't be a prick, and don't be a pussy.
That's right.
But anyway, that's why Crosby always deserves douchebag of the year. But he has to go through the nominee process.
Yes.
Now, we continue. And my next nominee, and now, of course, how am I going to top Sidney Crosby? And I'm not picking the same one you picked, obviously. Although I could have very easily have picked him, I decided not to.
Okay.
And
I'm fine either way if you want to pick him or not pick him. You know what I mean?
It's hard to not pick him.
Yeah.
But we'll get to him in a moment because he's definitely worthy of this award. But definitely douchebag of the year, Gary Bettman.
Oh.
I hate Gary Bettman.
Yeah.
And it's not just because I hate him, because Gary Bettman is an asshole. And I think the NHL is douchebags because of this realignment. This is a cockamamie Einstein bullshit project thrown at the NHL fans to say, oh yeah, we're going to do the old divisional setup, but we're just going to throw a wild card in and that could be anybody. Isn't this awesome? No, go fuck yourself. This isn't awesome.
They're trying to build off of the great success that baseball has had with a wild card, now 2 wild card scenario, and then you have football always having those exciting wild card games. Hockey is different, and it's different for a reason. Do you want to be like the other major sports, or do you want to be unique? Great point, brother.
Yeah, and the same thing with the NBA. Do you see the NBA having wild cards? No. And if there's any two sports that are similar, NBA and the NHL have always had similar playoff standouts.
Right.
They always had the top 8 go to the playoffs. Was it that hard to move either Columbus or Nashville to the Eastern Conference and move Winnipeg to the West? Was it that freaking hard that you decided you had to realign the whole goddamn league? Mm-hmm. You had to make it a fucking Einstein project. Gary Bettman, you deserve to be one of the douchebags of the year.
Well said, man. That's exactly right. I mean, sometimes people overthink things.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And now, going from one business suit to another, it's time for your next nominee.
Yeah, we've talked about him a lot over the course of this year, over the course of this show, for that matter, but he still needs to be brought up in this award category, and that's John Tortorella.
Of course.
Of Vancouver Canucks. As we covered, he's led them to a severe, disappointing season, constantly has his foot in the mouth syndrome, and suspended 15 days during the season for trying to charge into the Flames locker room after an on-ice brawl. I mean, I understand hockey players get passionate on the ice. You have to be the voice of reason and not a douchebag, and that's what John Tortorella is. I can go on and on, but I think it would be redundant.
There's so many things you could throw out there of John Tortorella's case to make him douchebag of the century.
Yeah,
talk
about on and off ice. Way to conduct yourself. Just you want to speak passionately. A lot of people think they have to curse to speak passionately. I'm not one of those people, and constantly within press conferences, talking to the media, it's like bleep, 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 bleep. You can't even know what he's saying about because there's so many freaking bleeps.
It's sad because, out of that whole time, John Tortorella doesn't have the wherewithal to just say, hey, I'm the coach. My job is to keep the players under control. My job is to be Mr. Calm, Cool, and Collected. When you're losing your temper every 5 seconds, how are you Mr. Calm, Cool, and Collected? I like the fact that he's passionate. I like the fact that he's the guy who's not going to bullshit you. He's going to be dead honest with you. Fine. That's good. But there is a line that must be drawn as to how far you go.
Right.
And he doesn't draw it.
He doesn't know it. He doesn't even recognize
doesn't
it.
even recognize it. Yeah, he doesn't get it. He
No.
just doesn't get it. So now that we've got our douchebags set up, time for us to pick which one is the ultimate of douchies. And the first one out of my two, between Gary Bettman and Sidney Crosby, as much as Bettman is an asshole, I have to go with Crosby.
Wow, Crosby over Bettman. I wouldn't have guessed that.
Why? Because quite frankly, Bettman is guilty by association. Because of the simple fact of, now, I'll give him some bit of this, even though he fought teams going back to Canada, which is stupid. And then also the simple fact of he's fought the idea of the team expanding more into Canada, like, which is also stupid. Because where are you going to get your money? Canada. Right. You know, just saying. But anyway, he's done some stupid things. But it's not just him that's running the NHL. There's a lot of businessmen running this. There's a board of directors that run this thing. There's the stockholders that run this thing. So there is a lot that he has to answer to. He does have masters he answers to. Crosby should have masters to answer to. But Dan Bylsma doesn't put any rein on his bullshit.
Right.
And Sidney Crosby gets away with fucking murder.
Yeah, he does.
He is Jesus Christ incarnate for half of the NHL, which is sad. If he's Jesus Christ, then I'm Judas, you know? I will gladly sell his ass off to be hung, and I will gladly be hung for that, you know? Because he doesn't deserve it. He doesn't deserve it. He is an asshole. He doesn't belong here. He's pathetic. Wayne Gretzky wasn't like that.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. Gretzky was guilty and he got away with it, but I'm pretty sure Gretzky would look back and then said, yeah, I did it. You know? Let's be honest here. Gretzky's that kind of man. Lemieux was never like that. I respect Mario Lemieux. I respect him with all my heart. Why? Because Lemieux's a man's man. He is a champion of champions. Penguin and everything. But he's a man's man. He'll step up to the plate. Crosby, he's a coward. He's a crybaby coward, and that's why he beats out Gary Bettman.
Oh, got it. Yeah.
So, sorry for the rant, but it's, you know, it has to be done.
Hey, don't apologize. That's what this show is for. But out of my two, you would think I would go with John Tortorella, right? No? Brad Marchand?
Brad Marchand, really?
Yeah.
I'm surprised you're going with Brad Marchand instead of Tortorella.
Yeah. I mean, maybe it's because Tortorella's too obvious. Maybe I want to be a little coy.
I mean, I picked the obvious one.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I get what you're saying with the players being the players, and that's what the product is, and what kind of product are you selling.
Right.
And obviously Crosby being the face of the league, Brad Marchand being a hero to Boston.
Stanley Cup winning.
And Stanley Cup winners, both of them are.
Yeah, because that story I told was celebrating the Stanley Cup. Yeah, so technically that's still this year, you know, or you know what I mean? It was up at the end of last season, but that still affects this award in my standpoint. I want to get your input, though. Who do you think deserves it more, Tortorella or Marchand?
I honestly think Tortorella gets it more, only because Tortorella has shown a lack thereof effort to be the coach that he should be.
Right.
Instead of being a Craig Berube type where he is soft-spoken and he keeps his words short and sweet to the point because he might have to eat them later.
Right.
Tortorella does everything the opposite. And he always – it's like he has to put on a strong front, almost overcompensating for something.
Right.
But it's just like –
Small Willie?
I don't know. But
you were thinking it.
Yeah, you know what? Maybe. You know, I don't know. Quarter of an inch? No, not even that. Maybe about a couple centimeters. But anyway, we move on.
Yeah.
Point
all
is,
right. Tortorella it is.
Yeah, I mean, in all honesty, yeah, I still understand what you're saying with Marchand because Marchand is one of the heroes of Boston. He's one of the guys who was on that Stanley Cup team.
Yeah. And
he's setting a really bad example for the kids out there. Patrick Kane's another one of them.
Yeah.
But you get the point. The point is you're setting a bad example. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
Fine.
It's like a coin flip for me, too, so that's why I figured I'd throw it to you. Yeah, we'll go with Tortorella versus Crosby.
All right. So now this one has to be left up to the hockey gods because both of them have been douchebags all up and down this season. They've been douchebagging it up. We gotta let the hockey gods decide. Who's it going to be?
You know it. You call it.
All right. Heads for John Tortorella.
Congratulations, John Tortorella. You are a douchebag.
Good job, John. You've earned such a coveted award, such a spirited award.
Hey, you know what? When you first mentioned this award, this was the first man that came into my head.
Me
and
too.
We left it up to the gods.
Yeah.
And it still is
Even
John
the
Tortorella.
gods know he's a douchebag. It's so great.
That's right.
Oh, God.
Boy.
We here at the Hockey Hour approve of the gods here. They've been spot on when it comes to these awards, man. They've been
Indeed.
spot on.
Indeed.
So, we've got our douchebag of the year. It's John Tortorella. And now it's time to get into a little bit more of a serious kind of hockey sense. Let's get into the best team. Now, this goes to the team of this is the team that has been the most solid. This is the team that has just been kicking ass and taking names and have been not ashamed to be who they are and show it off to everybody. Just like we are the team that's going to win the Stanley Cup.
Yes.
And we mean it, you know? Because there's been a lot of teams that have come out here who have always like, oh, yeah, we're going to make the playoffs, and then they don't.
Yep.
And there have been a lot of teams that have looked like they've got a lot going for them, and they can't make it work. So these are the teams that have made it work. They're 10 times better than any team I could throw up against them.
Yeah.
And they've just been one of those guys that you look at, that's going to be the team to win the cup.
Yeah, it may not necessarily be a team at the top of the standings. It's a team that works the best as a unit, as one collective force moving forward strongly and powerfully.
Absolutely. And now it's time for us to choose. So I'm going to start off with you, Pove. Who are your two nominees?
Well, first of all, when I said that collective unit, immediately this team popped in my head, and that's the St. Louis Blues.
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, they have that one standout line. Don't get me wrong, and they are the cream of the crop. But just from first line center down to right wing on the fourth line to their defensive core to their goaltending, which got even stronger with Ryan Miller. Honestly, they're just one unit moving forward powerfully, and I really think that they are the best team this year.
Yeah, and quite frankly, they're a shoo-in to win the cup. They're a shoo-in to just be the representative of the Western Conference because look at this team and compare them to others. It's not to say that they're shabby, but there's just some things about the St. Louis Blues just like, what's there to improve? That, like, I literally don't think there's anything to improve on.
Well, they have been slacking a little bit lately, losing 4 straight and giving up that division.
I think they took their foot off the gas because they've had that playoff berth for quite some time.
They didn't want to get exhausted at the keep a moment of time.
Yeah,
That's a great insightful point there.
I wouldn't be surprised to put Elliott in goal instead of Miller.
Yeah.
Because of that. They're just resting Miller up for the playoffs.
Right.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
So, that's your first one?
Yep.
What's your number 2?
Number 2? Because I was so dead set with the Blues being number 1. I'm going to have to say, after careful thought and deliberation, maybe this is more of an obvious choice, but Boston Bruins.
Yeah, the Bruins, you got to put them in there because, quite frankly, if you don't put the Bruins in there, you're a moron.
Yeah,
like, seriously.
Yeah. Maybe I was trying to be a little coy for my own likings, but, yeah, Boston Bruins, again, nice collective unit, really, scoring depth, strong defense where you got, 2 of our 4 defensive nominees from the same team, and Boychuk and Zdeno Chara. Great goaltending and Rask, great coaching. Yeah, it's a wonderful organization, and it might work out to be the Blues versus the Bruins in the Stanley Cup Finals.
It might very well be. That would be now number 2 in the Central up against number 1 in the Atlantic. So very interesting stuff all rolling together for this one. I'm really looking forward to it. And definitely 2 teams that are worthy of it. All right. We move on to my 2. First one on my nominee list has got to be this team has just been phenomenal all year. It's the Anaheim Ducks. Bruce Boudreau coming over to Anaheim was a blessing in disguise, and this team has really functioned so well. It's so hard to bet against them come playoff time.
You think Boudreau is happy to be out west from the lowly Capitals in the East?
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, for one thing, he's not coaching a team that he's now coaching a team that has a Stanley Cup. But I mean, in all honesty, I think he's happier because he's got more to work with. You know, it's not just Ovechkin. You know, he's got so many other players. You got Solani, Perry, Getzlaf. Let's see, who else is there? Boschman. Yeah. You've got so many great players on this team. It's just like
Hiller, goal.
Hiller in goal. Pick your poison. You know, who do you think is the better player? Fucking, I don't know. You know, like seriously, this team is just great. Yeah. You know, definitely deserving. They got 112 points. They're leading the President's Trophy race at this point. And well, no, they're not actually. They're Boston's leading it. But point is, they're number 2, and Anaheim is already clinched their division. So it's just like, forget it. They're going to be Pacific Division champions this year. So impressive stuff by them, man. Impressive stuff.
Absolutely, great pick.
And now, of course, my final pick is a Western Conference team, and that's got to be the San Jose Sharks. You know, and they've got to be the next one on this list because the Sharks have been there. They've just been there the whole time. I mean, they were in the wild card for a period of time, and it looked like, okay, they're starting to get that downtrend. Man, I don't know what happened at the halfway point. After the Olympic break came, Joe Pavelski must have slapped him across the face and said, wake the fuck up. We are the San Jose freaking Sharks. We don't take shit from nobody. And now they're 107 points deep. They're number 2 in the Pacific. And man, they have just been like fire on gasoline. They've been just burning bright all season for the rest of this time.
Absolutely.
They've been phenomenal since coming out of the gate. So they've got good goaltending too along with it. You get Niemi and Stalick. Both of them very good goaltenders. So now we've got 4 teams, 1 in the East, 3 in the West. Kind of figured that was going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
now the balance is shifting to where the powerhouses are. Man, how do you pick from these 4? Wow.
All right. Well, I'll start with my first 2. Out of the 2, the Sharks and the Ducks, I'm going to say screw the Ducks. I'm going with the Sharks.
The Sharks?
You know what? And I say this because I like the Sharks, and also at the same time, I think the Sharks I think they have a better chance of winning the Cup than the Ducks because I think the Ducks, they still have their peaks and valleys. Like you said earlier, they still have their inconsistency. And I think that may come back to haunt them at the end of the day. Putting Hiller aside, if they get inconsistent and their offense stops to flash, all of a sudden, here comes San Jose out of nowhere scoring. And what do you do then? You got no counter. So San Jose goes in mine.
Well done. Well done. Man, how am I going to pick between these 2, the Blues and the Bruins? I think it's going to have to come down to one key factor, and that's character.
Yeah, and a little bit of heart.
Yeah.
That has to come into play. Who's more hungry out of the 2?
Yeah, and for that matter, I'm going to say the St. Louis Blues.
Yeah, I'd say the same thing because I think the Blues, they have the desire because they haven't had it yet.
Right.
The Bruins have been there, done that, bought it, sold it, got the T-shirt.
Right.
You know, the Blues, on the other hand, they haven't had it yet. They're just that hunger is there. You can tell it's there. They want to be the next Stanley Cup champions. They want it.
Yeah. And often you see Bruins, they lose their focus often at times. You even see Char get that snarl. You see Marchand getting dirty in front of that net and they break away from that team unit a little bit. So, I mean, I'm hugely nitpicking right now because obviously the Bruins are a great team. And that's a rarity. These occasions are in the rarity, but that has to give the edge to the Blues for me. Yeah. St. Louis Blues.
So, I mean, I think you're right on that. I think the Blues definitely deserve to be the team that upgrades. Because I think, again, Boston, I think we might see them take their foot off the gas. I'm not saying that this is for certain, but this might happen.
Wait. I want to get that on record. You think I'm what? You think I'm right?
Yeah.
Holy cow. Hooray! Yeah!
You've been right before.
Oh, no, it's rare.
Hey, just because we have a difference of opinion, you could very well be right all the time. I could be the one who's dead wrong half the time. I'm just the one who always is yelling and making a case because I don't want to be wrong. But half the time, those are the guys that are wrong. So, but anyway, we move on to our final 2.
Yeah.
Boston up against...
No, Blues. That's okay.
See, I am wrong. Yeah, but
oh, that's simple. That's just you're forgetting what I had picked. So it's the Blues versus the Sharks, right?
Yeah, and the Blues versus the Sharks. And out of these 2, I don't want to do this because I love the San Jose Sharks, but I got to go Blues.
Yeah,
because I think the Blues, on structure wise and coaching wise, I think they're there.
Yeah,
and I think goaltending wise, I think Miller could probably outbeat both Niemi and Stalick.
Right.
And that's not to take anything away from Niemi, but Niemi's got a cup. Miller doesn't have one.
Right. And he's hungry for it.
He's hungry for
Yeah.
it. And the Blues, they don't have a cup. Don't get me wrong, Sharks don't either, but
Niemi does.
Niemi does, you know. And when it comes down to it, goaltending can make you or break you, you know.
Had the Blues not picked up Miller, I say the Sharks gets this best team award, but Miller is the key component.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So definitely deserving. The St. Louis Blues, we are in agreement here on. Not agree to disagree. I was going to say that. Funny. Anyway, on the Hockey Happy Hour, we are in agreement on the Best Team of the Year award. Was there any doubt in anybody's mind? Of course it's the St. Louis Blues.
Yeah.
Everybody loves the St. Louis Blues. It's a blue year. It's all blue and yellow and white and black and all that good shit. And we move forward. All right. Before we get to the MVP of the year, which is the big one, we have to now make note. Because, quite frankly, we have those moments in the year where we see players and teams, they just make the goofiest of mistakes. And they just keep screwing up sometimes. And it's funny. But, you know, it's always one of those... Oh, wait a minute. Oh, no, not again. Again? Oh, God. Who's it now? Oh, I know who it is.
Who is this?
Hi, everybody, it's Don Cherry, and I'm here on the Coach's Corner on Hockey Night in Canada. And I'm going to be honest with you, if I had to pick anybody in this stupid, cheap-ass $200 suit that I bought with the ugly-ass print that I usually have, I'm going to have to pick somebody from Canada. And I'm going to go with none other than the San Jose Sharks. Sharks aren't from Canada, Don. Oh, well then I'm going with the Toronto Maple Leafs. Maple Leafs aren't making it. Well then how about the Montreal Canadiens? Let's go with the Habs. The Habs are always a good team. Yeah, they're God's team, but you do realize that besides Danny Briere, they don't really have much. Well, screw you! The Montreal Canadiens are going on to win the Stanley Cup. They're going to get another one. They're finally going to win and add it to their franchise record. Be like, Don, they haven't won a cup since I was born. It's been 20 years since they've won a Stanley Cup. How long do you think they have left? I think they have plenty of time left. Don Cherry, everybody. I think he's going a little senile, and he's just left the studio because I think I insulted him. But anyway.
What the heck was that? Mr. Cherry is one big blooper if I've ever seen one. Holy crap.
So now that we've got bloopers ready on the mind, let us get ready for the Best Blooper of the Year award. And the first one that comes to mind is, in me, Chicago Blackhawks scoring on their own empty net. When you get a penalty, when you get a man down, that's when the goalie leaves and you get an extra attacker. Well, every once in a blue moon, sometimes a puck will ease its way on into your net. This particular time, Chicago suffered that ill fate. And needless to say, it was quite laughable from all the other fans.
When I saw the highlights of that, big time laugh out loud right there.
How do you do it? I mean, it's so funny. Masterful. Could have done it 1,000 times. They wouldn't have scored on their own net.
I know. Yeah, absolutely. Try that. Yeah. And, you know, you're surprised it doesn't happen more. You know, with the rate that teams do pull their goaltenders, but that's because most people pay attention to where they're handling the puck. And
usually.
Yeah.
You would think that this is an improbability, but apparently it isn't.
Yeah.
So,
bit of misfortune, a bit of lack of concentration.
All right, so what's your first blooper, Pove?
My first blooper, I'm going to title this Penalty Box Dentist. Little title there for you. Florida's Chris Barch on November 2nd of last year, he was involved in a bloody fight versus the Capitals and sent to the penalty box for his standard 5 minutes. And while he was sitting there on the bench, you know, the cameras focused on him. Even one of the cameraman, a fan with their camera phone got him on there pulling his own loose tooth out, and then he tossed it to that fan for a souvenir. Man, that's a tough way to make a living. I wonder what that tooth is going to go for on eBay.
Oh, boy, I could imagine. Maybe somewhere in the thousands. Somebody's going to say, what sicko buys a man's tooth?
I know. Probably me. But
only if it was Couturier's, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Got to find his missing teeth.
But, I mean, the fans were really shouting at him because obviously this was on enemy soil in Washington. But man, he had a good sense of humor. He took his mouthpiece out. He wiggled it around a little bit. The video is so funny. You got to watch it out there. If you definitely Google it, look it up on YouTube. But and then the fans are all shouting at him this disparaging mark and that disparaging mark, and he's just like, here, have my tooth. And then after that, they kind of warmed up to him a little bit. It was pretty cool. But that was definitely, and maybe not so much on the ice blooper, but a blooper nonetheless.
But you know what the funny part is? You go to the game, you get a souvenir. And it's either a jersey or it's a hockey stick or it's a puck or it's a teddy bear of your favorite player. And then imagine the one-up of this. I got a tooth at the hockey game. I got a tooth from an actual player.
That father brings his son back and he goes, Mommy, look what I got at the game. It's a tooth.
Yeah, you talk about walking away with a souvenir. Oh, God. Good old days of hockey where people were losing their teeth left and right. Nothing like that being ushered back in such a great way. All right, my blooper, my next one. We all know the too many men on the ice penalty that has very common to see every once in a blue moon. Usually teams are guilty of this, but usually they only have 6 men on the ice.
Yeah, usually.
Somehow, some way, the Florida Panthers, of course, were able to put 10 men out on the ice at one time.
10 men?
And the rest didn't call it until about a minute later. I don't know what's dumber, the fact that they had 10 men on the ice or the fact that the rest took forever to call it.
How do you miss that? Were they thinking it was like the other team where the jersey's that close?
I don't know. I was like, ref, don't you see the bench is kind of empty over there?
Right.
They're like, look at down there. It's like a flood of them motherfuckers down there.
Holy cow. I mean, I didn't witness that. This is news to me. Holy cow. How did they miss that? That is a serious blooper.
I don't know how the team can make that kind of blooper. I mean, your transition, you must really not care to really have 10 men out on the ice at one time. I mean, it's just so laughable. It's just like, how do you do that? How do you even do that once? Like, seriously. But, all right, we'll go with it. So that definitely is my final nominee. Now it's the Pove's turn. What is your final nominee?
All right, my final nominee. This was laughable. This was definitely the most laughing moment that I found. And I'm going to title this one "Case of the Missing Puck."
Oh, God.
On December 23rd, 2013, last year, obviously. That's a news flash. All right, put the beer down, Pope. All right. In an overtime game between Phoenix Coyotes and Buffalo Sabres, Mark Syke batted a juicy rebound and popped the puck in the air. It disappeared with no explanation. And nobody knew where it went. Did it go out of play? Where the heck was it? Well, upon further review, the puck, when it went up in the air, it landed in Phoenix goalie's Mike Smith's hockey pants on his backside. And as he slid back into the crease to prevent a rebound opportunity, he scored an own goal, giving the game to Buffalo 2-1 because the puck obviously crossed the line with his buttocks in the net. So they had to review it, and they had to award the goal to Buffalo.
It figures Buffalo would get a win this way.
Yeah, it really would. One of the few ways that they can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
But that had to have been an embarrassing moment for Mike Smith there. But, I mean, how are you supposed to know that? I mean, the puck gets lost in a goalie's equipment all the time. But in that manner, right in the cracky ass, you know what I mean?
Maybe if he shat it out, he might actually know.
Definitely. And funny enough, I mean, this wasn't the only time that there was like a pinball type goal. There was that one recently in Columbus as well. I forget against who it was. Puck's been flying all kinds of kooky directions this year.
You wonder, it's just like, do they actually freeze the puck anymore before they put it out on the ice? Because I swear to you, they let it just sit there dry. Like, you do realize when the puck is dry, it's going to bounce all over the freaking place.
I would explain that.
I mean, just saying, it's normal physics and hockey physics and Canadian physics all thrown into there, and that's why you're supposed to refrigerate these pucks. But, oh well, nobody's thinking. That's not unusual. We move on. So, out of the best bloopers of it, my two. Out of the two that I have, I'm going to give my favorite blooper has got to be, I would say Chicago scoring on its own net, but Florida putting 10 men out on the ice. Oh my God. Like, you shouldn't be able to even do this once. This has to be the one that goes by.
I agree with you. I mean, certainly I laughed more at the own goal, maybe because it was Chicago scoring on themselves.
Yeah.
But that's just a double blooper because not only did the team lose concentration, but what were the refs thinking?
What the hell were the refs thinking?
Yeah.
Like, refs was like, hey, ref, look at the damn bench. There's nobody there.
Yeah, you know what? I'm ready to. I like my two. Don't get me wrong, especially the booty goal in the case of the missing puck,
the booty goal,
and the player pulling out his tooth. But learning that, because I did not know about that 10 men on the ice until you just said it on air now. I vote for that as best blooper. That's got to be the best blooper.
Yeah,
so
it's 10 men out on the ice. That's a too many men on the ice penalty double minor pretty much right there. You got 2 people in the box for that sucker.
I was going to say, did they get 2 penalties for that?
I think they did for that particular penalty. But either way, oh my God, like that's just hilarious. It's one thing when the players make the mistake. It's another thing when the whole team and the refs make a mistake. That's when you realize nobody gives a shit.
Right?
That's when you realize this is just ceremony. Nobody really gives a crap.
No kidding.
And it figures it's in Florida. But anyway, so now that we have our best blooper of the year, it's now time for our MVP of the Year awards to close the show out here on the Hockey Happy Hour. And
oh, no, we got 2.
We got 2.
Yeah, we have best forward and best MVP.
Oh, all right, then let's get to best forward. I almost made a mistake. So best forward, and best forward of the year is basically the guy who's goal scoring, the guy who's getting the assist, the offensive aspect of the game, which is always a lot more fun to look at. And now it's time for us to decide who is our best forward of the year. And we're going to start with Pove's nominees.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. And yeah, I did want to make that distinction because, it's tough. Usually, often, the best forward may be the MVP, but I wanted to leave it where best forward, pure stats, MVP, what he matters to the team.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to make that distinction here, and you'll see why with my first nominee. And my first nominee for best forward, Sidney Crosby.
Okay, then.
Yeah, this could be a possible snub for MVP, but I just think he's less essential than the other players that I have on that list, just due to his supporting staff. He's got, Malkin, Chris Kunitz, James Neal. If you lost Crosby, yeah, it would make a huge dent, and he may not be, the Penguins may not be as strong of a team for it, but they will survive.
Yeah, they will because they're one of those teams that they can persevere, and they showed it.
Yeah. But he's definitely the best forward overall stats-wise. He's currently leading the Art Ross Trophy race with typical Crosby stats. 36 goals, 67 assists for 103 points, 16 plus 16 plus minus rating, 11 power play goals, 5 game-winning goals, 254 shots on the season, which is a colossal number, even for Crosby, who can be a puck hog. That's not a bold statement.
No, that's no surprise.
Now, defense, getting back there on the play is another matter when it comes to this man. But when you're talking forward, Sid the Kid, class act, best forward.
Yeah, it has to be Sid the Kid only because we're not taking anything away from his stats or what he's able to do because he's a good player, and that's why I think it's so sad that he retracts from himself with all his behavior and his BS. But obviously, he has to be a nominee on here. And now your second one on the list.
You got it, man. This is a bit of a surprise, but he just had, I think he's the breakout candidate of the year. He's currently chasing Crosby and Getzlaf for the Alt Ross Trophy, and that's Tyler Seguin and the Dallas Stars.
Tyler Seguin is one of those guys that I forgot he was on the Stars now. I thought he was still on the Bruins.
Right.
But still, he's just one of those guys that he's so damn talented. When they drafted Taylor Hall and him, out of the two, I was wondering who was going to be the better one because they were really hyping him up. And it turns out it's really Seguin who's really the big winner here because he's developing much faster than Taylor Hall is. Now, don't get me wrong. Seguin hasn't been handicapped by being on a crappy team called the Edmonton Oilers, but he's really been developing properly and really turning into quite a good player.
Well, this is a big reason why I put him on the list because, he's not isolated as much as Taylor Hall, but he definitely has less pieces around him down in Dallas than he did in Boston. Minus Jamie Benn, obviously, a great player.
Jamie Benn, yeah.
And he's only 22 years old.
And that's amazing.
Yeah.
He's only 22. He's only a year older than me. Wow. He is... do I have to say more? He's going to be something big come the near future. He
Huge.
really is.
Huge. This season, just to give you a nutshell, 36 goals, 47 assists for 83 points, plus 16 rating, 10 power play goals, 10.
Wow.
Which is tremendous. I mean, you got players like Dwayne Train with 14, higher than that, but with these other stats, 8 game-winning goals, 279 shots. You thought Crosby took a lot of shots. This man eclipsed him by 25. And he's just getting better and better. It really is. And, he could arguably be the best forward in the NHL this season.
Yeah, absolutely. And now my turn. We've been talking about some top forwards, top goal scorers, and now it's time to talk about even better forward, talking about the forwards and what they do all around. Forwards also can be leaders, can be assisters, can be anything that they need to be.
That's
because
right.
When your team is requiring offense, they're the guys to go to.
Good point.
And one of the guys that has been so important offensively, he's been at plus 29 all year. He has 56 assists and 31 goals. Anaheim Ducks own Ryan Getzlaf. Mm-hmm. He is definitely one of my nominees on this list because he has been so important. He's not the goal scorer that he's not the goal scorer for the team. He's been the number one assister for their team, and he's been the guy who's been the disher.
Still has 31 goals as well.
Yeah, that's still impressive. Absolutely,
but definitely known for his assisting. As you said.
Absolutely, and he's been the captain for a reason.
Right.
And he's such an important value to that Anaheim Ducks team. When that Ducks team needed goal scoring, they found it with Ryan Getzlaf. When that team needed leadership, they found it with Getzlaf. Especially when their Stanley Cup year came around because Paul Kariya was gone.
Right.
So you're like, where do you go to? You either go to Pronger or you go to Getzlaf. And a lot of times Getzlaf was the guy who would step up to the plate and say, just jump on my back and I'll help you. And really Getzlaf was so important to that Anaheim Ducks team winning the Cup.
Right.
So Getzlaf definitely deserves that nomination here this year. And then to add to the nominee, I have to give it to him. I was not going to at first, but I'm going to do it anyway. Call me a homer if you have to. Claude Giroux. I'm going with Giroux. Now, he didn't start the season off all great, but boy, when he got his first goal, holy crap did he explode. He only had 27 goals, but 55 assists. He has been so keen on being the disher for this team.
Yes,
and he's a +6 out on the ice. And he's number 5, only behind Corey Perry in points, and tied with Corey Perry actually in points with 82. So quite frankly, he's averaging a point a game like Corey Perry. That's impressive. For a guy who started out really bad, he's just become, boom, he's phenomenal.
That's been the most impressive, and I'll talk about that a little bit in depth later on.
So now that we have our 2, it's time for us to go into who we think. Now, out of my 2, I got to go with Getzlaf only because I'm doing this best forward and who had the better year. Getzlaf had the better year than Giroux.
Right.
In all honesty. And that you don't need to look any further than the stats and the points, and the goals.
Right.
Obviously, Getzlaf didn't stumble out of the gate like the rest of the Philadelphia Flyers did. Everybody on the Flyers stumbled out of the gate.
Yeah,
but, Getzlaf, he's the kind of guy who, from start to finish, he was solid. So definitely should be the guy who gets the nod out of the 2.
Yeah, I can see that. I can definitely see that. From between my 2, man, it kills me to do this, but I gotta go with Crosby over Seguin. As great
Another
of a
one of those stats.
Yeah, I mean, as great of a year as Seguin has had, and his stats really measure up pretty well to Crosby. Maybe a little bit deficient in the assist category, but he's got the power play goals, he's got the game-winning goals. He certainly puts the puck on that. But yeah, I'll go with Sid, a slight edge over Seguin.
Yeah, absolutely. So now that we've got our 2 finalists, we've got Crosby and Getzlaf, which are number 1 and 2 actually in the NHL in individual points. Who do you think gets this nod as a player? And in all honesty, I hate to do this, but I'm going to have to. It's got to be Crosby.
Yeah.
And that's simply because the stats have stated this.
Yeah.
It's not MVP. It's based on who's the best forward, who's the best at his position.
Right.
Crosby is.
Right.
And like we said before, we'll jab at him as much as we like to, but you can't take away from the player that he is.
Yeah.
You just can't.
I agree.
So Crosby gets the Best Forward of the Year award here at the Hockey Happy Hour. But it's crazy. He almost could have been the guy who got douchebag of the year and best forward all in one foul swoop. That would have been interesting. That would have been an interesting spectrum this year.
The double whammy.
The double whammy. Douchebag of the year and the best forward. Gives the old saying, nice guys finish last. But anyway. All righty.
They do indeed.
So now that we've got the best forward out of the way, it's time to close out the show. Sad face. But we will have one positive. It's now time for our MVP of the Year award.
MVP.
And where would we be without an MVP? Where would teams be without an MVP? Where would hockey in itself be without an MVP? There's always got to be that player that you throw all your hopes and charisma and your dreams on, and he's the guy who's going to make it happen because he's the MVP of this team. He's the guy that everybody goes to. He's your go-to guy for everything. Now it's time for the nominees on the list. And I'm going to start this one off. My first MVP of the Year award is going to go to Henrik Lundqvist. In a year where the New York Rangers have been slacking in offense and been slack-jawed most of the time and has stumbled out of the gate, Lundqvist was their rock in a time when they desperately needed one. And Lundqvist has kept this team alive and breathing through most of the time. When the Rangers don't have offense, who do they go to? Lundqvist. And he's been the man. He's been the machine. He's been the guy who's been so important to this New York Rangers team. If the Rangers make a great run in the playoffs this year, you owe all of that to Henrik Lundqvist. So definitely deserving of an MVP nomination on this list.
Agreed. Yeah, agreed. And that's interesting, too. When I was looking into this category for MVP, and I didn't consider goaltending, I'll be honest with you. And you know what? The goaltender can definitely be the most valuable player on a team, especially the nature of the sport heading into the playoffs. Great pick, buddy.
Yeah, I think that, and especially for a team like the Rangers, who I said, they've been having those moments where they'll great offensive games, and then they'll just slack forever.
Yeah. He's by far the Rangers MVP, by far.
By far.
Yeah,
especially for the year.
Right.
For the year, he is definitely Rangers MVP.
Right.
Now, moving on, back to my boys out west, San Jose. During a time period where San Jose was kind of losing it a little bit, we were like, where is San Jose? Like, what is going on? Why are they stagnant? Why are they wild card? One player has been phenomenal for this team, and one player that I saw get a hat trick live on the Flyers, Joe Pavelski.
Joe Pavelski.
This guy was... wow, what can I say? He's having one of those years where you're just like, this is why they got him in the first place, because they knew he was that good.
Right.
And he's just been that player. He's been the player, go-to guy for the San Jose Sharks. He'll definitely be the MVP for them this year, and he's kept this team breathing and relevant during a year where we thought, they'll be lucky if they even make the wild card.
Right.
But here we are. We're getting close to the end of the playoffs, and they're ready to be one of the top teams. And Joe Pavelski had a big hand in playing in that. So those are my two nominees.
Awesome. Great nominees, buddy. Definitely. Now, mine are going to be a little redundant because my two MVP choices are your exact choices for best forward. Very interesting.
That is so convenient.
Yeah, it is. It is. Definitely, indeed. But, I mean, it's true because, hey, these skills are going to, best forward, can be the best player on your team.
Sometimes.
These are both captains of their team, and quite often your team rises and falls.
And they both have led by example.
Yes.
And I've said that so many times, but guess what? That's the key to being a good captain, leading by example.
Yep. And I'll start with our boy G, Claude Giroux. He's been the true barometer for the Flyers season. When they were bad early, he was struggling. After getting his first goal on November 9th versus the Oilers, he's been the best player in the league, and the Flyers became instant winners. They're 37-19-8 since that point.
And also at the same time, when he scores, the Flyers usually win.
Yeah.
So there's something to Giroux. When he gets going, the whole team gets going.
Right. I mean, this team does have 6 other 20-plus goal scorers. Don't care. He's the MVP
He's
of this
the
team.
Man, basically.
And this is not This is not because I'm a Flyers fan. I could be a Ducks fan, and I would still say Claude Giroux is essential to the rise and fall of the Flyers. Yeah. Absolutely,
he is. Anybody with 2 eyes could definitely take a look at that. Anybody who knows hockey would definitely say that. I mean, I can tell you right now, we can have Barry Melrose right here, right now, look us dead in the face and say, first of all, I'd be wondering why the hell Barry Melrose is here. But then I would basically, Barry Melrose would say, yeah, Drew is the guy who will make or break this team.
Yeah.
In all honesty.
If Melrose was in the place, it'd get a little warm in here because we always used to call him back in the day Hot Air Melrose because he's just full of hot air.
Oh, back in the day. Of course,
Barry.
and maybe that goes back to the day when he was a coach and he had one good year. But anyway.
It was pretty cool listening to him as a little side note towards the Frozen Four. He was the color analyst on with John Butchergross. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah,
that's really cool.
It was pretty cool listening to the two of them. I haven't heard that in quite some time, so it was a little throwback there for some of our old time hockey fans here on the show. But yeah, getting back to G, 27 goals. I believe 55 assists now after last night's game for 82 points.
Yeah, he has 55 assists.
I had to do a slight adjust on the fly. I wrote these stats before last night's game. 7 power play goals, 7 game-winning goals, 209 shots, a plus-minus of 6, which is low. It's due mostly to that bad start.
Yeah, it's one of those where he probably would be higher on this list. He might be third in the NHL. I would make a bold prediction to say he'd probably be with Crosby, Getzlaf, and him right up there at those top 3 if it wasn't for that slow start.
Exactly. But definitely the true barometer of the Flyers, Claude Giroux. Number 2, Ryan Getzlaf, captain of the Anaheim Ducks, as you mentioned before. Why I saved him for the MVP rather than best forward, because honestly that was a great pick for best forward. It's just because he's one of the league's top two-way centers.
Yeah.
And he's the best playmaker in the NHL, in my opinion. He has captained Anaheim to the top of the standings, 52-20-8, I believe, at this point, or they 52-21-8.
I think he's done that on 2 separate occasions, too, might I add. I think he actually helped captain the Anaheim Ducks to being number 1 overall.
Yes. Yeah, 52-20-8. Yeah, and this isn't new. This isn't like a news flash that Getzlaf can be the league's MVP. He's done it before, and he did it again this year. And he just, going into this year, though, the Ducks weren't really preseason high expected to be where they're at this year. And his consistent play to years past really, has brought them to where they need to be. He leads the team in points, and he's essential penalty killer on the staff. So he just as important, and very much like Claude as well, scoring goals but killing penalties as well, and that's an MVP in my book. We covered. I believe you covered most of his stats here. 87 points, 31 goals, 56 assists, plus 29 rating, 7 game-winning goals. Again, 202 shots. Honestly, MVP of the Ducks and possibly the league itself.
Yeah, I would pretty much venture to guess I'd agree with you on that one. I mean, Ryan Getzlaf is so important to this Ducks team. He's a bit of that glue that's holding that team together. So definitely a good pick for being MVP. So now that we got our MVP choices, we got our 4. It's time to go through them. Let's start with me. Out of the 2 that I have, I've got Lundqvist on one end, I got Pavelski on the other. Out of who has been more substantial of an impact, I'm going to say Lundqvist.
Yeah.
Because this is a team, like I said before, look at what the Rangers have done. Again, that slacking offense, which I know it seems like I'm always picking that, but if I'm lying, I'm dying, man. I've seen this team struggle when it comes to their offense, and nobody's scoring that's their star.
Mm.
That's bad.
Right.
When Nash isn't scoring, when Richards ain't scoring, when St. Louis, when you traded for him and he's not scoring, you're like, where's the goal scoring coming from? It's coming from Kreider, Zuccarello, anybody but them.
Right.
So when that's happening, who do you turn to? Lundqvist.
Right.
And who's answered? Lundqvist.
Right.
He's been the main reason why the Rangers are in the playoffs right now.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And, looking at my 2 here, man, I mean, they're both just as essential to their team. And really the team's success rises and falls with them. Despite, Getzlaf having Corey Perry, despite Claude Giroux having a Voracek, I'm going to be a bit of a homer, and I'm going to give G the slight edge over Getzlaf. But in the end, I think you just hit the nail right on the head. Who's the league's MVP? That's got to be Henrik Lundqvist.
Yeah. I mean, in a lot of ways, I know it's tough to – I know we'd like to make a case where it wouldn't be him, but we got to remember – it's one thing to be able to score a ton of goals and get a bunch of assists and be one of the big offensive makers. It's another thing to stop 40 to 30 plus shots nightly.
Yeah.
And he does that, and he makes it look easy.
Do you agree, though, just based on now, the Flyers' success does rise and fall. He is the MVP of the Flyers.
Oh,
Getzlaf
absolutely.
is the MVP of the Ducks.
Absolutely.
Do you think Lundqvist does edge him out just because of less pieces around him in New York?
I would say because the Rangers do have a good defense. It's just that I would agree with you in a sense of he has pieces around him that are good, but he has certain ones that are bad, and he's able to make up for that lack. And if there's a lack in offense, he's able to pick up the slack for it. He's able to give them a 1-0, 2-1 victory, which they've been riding that coattail all year.
Right.
And the Flyers, without a doubt, they've had their peaks and valleys because when Giroux's bad, the team's bad. And Mason does everything he can, but unfortunately he can only snag a few games. He doesn't seem to be able to snag a whole season, which Lundqvist is able to do. Sure. Maybe Mason could develop into that, which would be great. But Lundqvist has seemed to be able to snag a full season for the Rangers. So I think definitely deserving a bit of that edge in Wise for that reason. And you're right. You're absolutely right about that, where because of that, Giroux having that impact on the Flyers so badly, he's made or break this team at times. When he's not scoring, this team is bad. And when Lundqvist, whether this team's scoring or not, he's able to keep this team breathing. So that's definitely the edgewise that should be put in there.
Got it.
Yep. So we have had quite a lot of fun here on this episode of the Hockey
This was a great awards show,
This
brother.
is fun, man. And I want to thank Rob for contributing all that he contributed to this show this year and this season. And we'll still be around. Of course, the playoffs are right around the corner. We're still going to be here. And even when the season ends, we'll be here. We'll give you an hour, though. We're not going to give you 2. We'll give you an hour just shooting the shit and talking some hockey. Because you know what? I love talking hockey. It's awesome. And also, when you got somebody like Rob here, it's always cool to talk with him about hockey.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, so...
You as well.
Thank you. And here at the Hockey Happy Hour, we're happy. We had a good time. We hope you guys had a good time. We hope that you enjoyed the award ceremony. And now, Rob, any last words you'd like to say to our audience?
Oh, thank you, brother. Yeah, I just want to give a quick reminder that the national championship game for the men's Division I tournament is going to be April 12th at 7:30 on ESPN, so tune in with Minnesota versus Union. And I wanted to give a little personal shout-out here to two of my favorite nephews, Mike and Zach Povia. Their birthday's coming up. I wanted to wish you guys a happy birthday on the mic from your Uncle Bobby. Love you very much. Thank you, man.
And and we wish you all that here at the Hockey Happy Hour. Not just Uncle Rob, but Matt also wishes you a happy birthday as well with that.
Thank you, sir.
And so here at the Hockey Happy Hour, we had a lot of fun. It was a great time here at the award ceremony. It's all cool. It's all relaxed. It's all chilled. It's hockey, man, and it's always fun to listen to, and it's always fun to watch, and it's always fun to talk about. And this season was quite an interesting season. There was ups and downs, there was all rounds, and in our last little bit of info before we head out, it's time to grade the Flyers season. I'm going to give this season a solid B+.
Ooh. They
stumbled out of the gate. I would give them an A, but the thing was, took them a while before they were able to get everything going. So B+. They did a good job. They're back in the playoffs, which is a great accomplishment. But if this is the sign of things to come, this is bad. Just saying. I don't want to have to come back from a bad start every year. So I definitely think got to be a little harsh here and put that little criticism in there, because you know what? That could have been our whole season.
Right.
Congratulations on it not being. But remember, keep that in mind. Keep that in mind as you move forward. So B+ for me. What about you, Rob?
I'm going to go on the negative side, and I'm usually Mr. Positive here, but I got to give him a B- here.
Okay.
Mostly, the shitty start that you explained before, but even after they got it together, I've seen this team play very excellently at times.
And they've played really shitty at times.
The lack of consistency.
Yeah, I understand why you give them a B-. I'm giving them a B+ only because they made the playoffs. If they didn't make the playoffs, I definitely would have been down there with you on that. Be like, I probably would have given them a C.
Oh, yeah.
For that.
At
Because,
least.
yeah.
If not an F.
D. I'll give them a D. An F would have been if they were dead last in the whole league,
Good point.
Yeah, but nonetheless, the point is that we've noticed that this team has been inconsistent. We know that this team's defense is a lot to be desired. There's still a lot of leaky holes that are here. And we know carrying into the playoffs, there's a lot that needs to be desired. We're happy we got Mason. We're happy our goaltending seems to be solid. But here's the thing. We need a better defense. We need more solid play. We need more consistency. This inconsistency is killing us. This make it or break it with Giroux is killing us. Giroux should not be the catalyst for if we do good or not. Yes, Giroux is our captain. Yes, he is our leader. But guess what? We have other heroes on this team. It's not just Giroux's team. We're not Penguins. We are not Pittsburgh. It's not Crosby's team. This is not Giroux's team in that sense. We have a lot of other players that are capable of being leaders. We got to bring those people out. They've got to step up to the plate. And Simmons, give him credit, he did, but we need others to do it as well.
Yes, sir.
So, point given out. Just letting the Flyers know you got a lot to improve on. This is a good start, but you're in that murky water still. You are not in the full clear here. So, leaving on that note, we want to say thank you for listening to the Hockey Happy Hour's end of the season awards. We had a lot of fun. We want to thank everybody who surprisingly showed up. We want to thank Macho Man for coming back.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, man. I was so happy to see Macho Man out of nowhere. Did not expect him. He came back just to kind of give his feelings, and we hope that the Flyers do get a good Stanley Cup soon and now and again, like he's hoping. And Don Cherry, thank you, I think, for stopping by.
Definitely a blooper if I have ever heard one. And speaking of wrestlers, sad note with the Ultimate Warrior passing this week.
And our condolences.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we hope that he rests in peace, and we hope him and Macho are up there, kicking it back, having a cold one. With Eddie Guerrero. We hope he's up there with all of them.
Oh, yeah.
So we are the Hockey Happy Hour. This has been our end of the season awards. We hope you keep it nice and cool. We hope you keep it with the hockey. We keep the hockey faith, as we always have for all these years, and keep the Flyers faith, because it's time to get all flyered up, because the playoffs are right around the corner. We got 2 more games to play. Saturday against Pittsburgh, should get a win against them in Consol Energy Center, and then against Carolina to finish off our season, and then it's all in the clear as we get ready to face either the Rangers or somebody else. Most likely the Rangers. Point is, can't wait. Can't wait till the season ends. I'm Matt Sensuti. This has been Rob the Pove Povia, and we're going to say goodbye. It's time for last call, boys. We'll see you off next time here on the Hockey Happy Hour. Now here's the full version of Hans Zimmer's Celebrate the Oscars. See ya.
Happy birthday, Mike and Zach.
Peace.